Imagine pouring your heart and soul into a home for almost 4 decades, filling it with beauty, color, and pieces of your life, only to have it ripped away because a spoiled landlord's daughter wanted it for herself. But what happens when the greedy daughter finally moves in and finds out the dream house she stole has been transformed into a soulless shell of grey paint and gravel? Today's story is about a woman who lost everything unfairly, but still got the sweetest revenge in the most unexpected way. D. Intro call to action. Next 15 to 20 seconds. If you've ever been underestimated, disrespected, or treated like you don't matter, this story will give you goosebumps. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because this revenge is going to feel so satisfying. E. Full narrative expansion. 1. Setup. The autistic neighbor. In my neighborhood, there was this house that everyone quietly admired. On the outside, it looked like a little cottage, quaint, almost plain. But inside, it was a masterpiece. Every wall was covered in murals. Not random doodles, but hand-painted scenes from Disney movies and fairy tales, castles, forests, magical creatures. Walking inside felt like stepping into another world. The woman behind all of this was named Rebecca. She was an art teacher back in the day, then started one of those paint and wine businesses before fully retiring. Even in retirement, she kept painting, murals, furniture, commissions. And she wasn't just talented. She was the type of neighbor who always smiled, who forgave you even when you didn't deserve it. I know that firsthand, because years ago, when she complained about my loud truck, I snapped at her. But she didn't hold a grudge. We worked it out, became friends, and honestly, I came to admire her. She'd lived in that house since the 1980s. And she wasn't just a tenant. She had an agreement with the original landlord. She could stay indefinitely. He'd even promised to sell her the place eventually. But promises mean nothing once the person keeping them dies. When the landlord passed, his children inherited the property. That's when things turned ugly. One of the sons brought his daughter to inspect the place. She walked inside, saw the murals, and instantly wanted it. Not because she loved the artistry. Not because she cared about Rebecca. No, because she thought it would be cute to have a ready-made fairy tale house for herself. Rebecca didn't have a written lease. Everything had been based on trust. And that trust died with the landlord. His kids suddenly had an excuse: the murals. They claimed the artwork violated rental conditions, that she had defaced the house. Rebecca fought. She begged. But in the end, she was evicted. When I tell you she was devastated, I mean it. Imagine living somewhere for nearly 40 years, only to be shoved out like you were never more than a squatter. But here's where fate smiled, just a little. At the last possible moment, Rebecca found another property, in another state. Not only that, but it had a built-in art studio. It was almost like destiny wanted her to keep painting. Still, leaving behind the murals she'd spent years creating? That broke her heart. Rebecca wanted to walk away quietly. Leave the cottage-style facade, leave the murals, and move on. But my buddy, another neighbor, had a different idea. He offered to restore the house to Rebecca standards. And by that, he meant stripping every ounce of beauty out of it. See, my buddy had just bought this powerful new paint sprayer. He was itching to try it. He told Rebecca, "Let me repaint the place before you go. For free. Consider it a gift." Rebecca thought about it, then nodded. She agreed. That's when the real revenge began. First, we moved all her furniture into storage. My buddy even let her stay in his guest house free of charge, on one condition: she'd paint a mural on his living room wall. Then we got to work. Week 1, we sanded down every wall. The murals? Gone. What used to be enchanting forests and magical castles now looked like blotchy, half-erased ghosts. Week 2, my friend fired up his new sprayer. He masked off everything: outlets, counters, switch plates. Then he covered the house, top to bottom, in Kills primer. When the primer dried, he pulled out his special paint collection. We called it the Rebecca collection, but not because it was beautiful. It was the exact opposite. These were the depressing flipper colors you see in every soulless, mass-produced house. Sterile whites, lifeless grays, the kind of tones that suck the joy out of a room. The result? A house that looked utterly dead inside. The murals were gone. The warmth was gone. Even the wood paneling and cabinets were coated in the same drab gray. Walking inside felt like stepping into a hospital waiting room. Cold, empty, soulless. And we weren't done yet. Outside, Rebecca had once decorated the house to look like a storybook cottage. The landlord's daughter had probably fallen in love with that too. But Rebecca had one last card to play. She struck a deal with my buddy's landscaper friend. Take the bushes as payment, in exchange for ripping the entire cottage facade apart. So, the landscaping crew went to town. They stripped the cottage face off, yanked out the greenery, and replaced it all with gravel, sand, and, just for kicks, one single lonely boulder. The once magical house now looked like a prison cell on the inside, and a desert rock pile on the outside. A week later, I stopped by the neighborhood. The house was still empty. Curious, I asked another neighbor if anyone had moved in yet. They laughed. We saw some U-Hauls here earlier this week, but nothing got unloaded. They were gone the same day. I couldn't help but grin. The spoiled daughter had dreamed of a whimsical fairy tale home. Instead, she walked into a graveyard of grey walls and gravel. No murals. No cottage charm. Just emptiness. All that scheming, all that greed, and she ended up with a house that had no soul. Meanwhile, Rebecca? She was already settling into her new home, painting in her brand new studio, free from landlords and greedy families. The beauty of this revenge wasn't loud or flashy. Nobody yelled. Nobody got sued. There wasn't even a confrontation. It was quiet, subtle, devastating. Rebecca's art, the very thing the landlord's daughter tried to steal, was gone forever. What she thought she could just take turned out to be something priceless, something only Rebecca could create. And when she opened the front door, expecting magic, only to find grey walls and dead gravel, that was the moment karma delivered its masterpiece. What I love about this story is how poetic it feels. You can take someone's house, but you can't steal their soul. You can't steal their talent, or the beauty they bring into the world. And sometimes, revenge doesn't need shouting or fighting. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is letting greed destroy itself. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales of justice served. And tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone's greed completely backfire? I'd love to hear your stories. Because at the end of the day, revenge, when it's deserved, is the sweetest kind of justice.